Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. Alright, some of my dedicated viewers might be wondering, why didn't I make a video this Sunday? Why didn't I make a video last Wednesday? This Sunday, I just didn't have time. I also didn't have an idea. And not having an idea is also why I didn't have one last Wednesday. I just didn't know what to make, and I didn't want to force a video. I make videos that I want to make when I want to make them. That's why it took me so long to get out my Sonic X Season 3 review, which, by the way, thank you for all that support. That video did way better than I thought it would. So today, it's time to talk about Ninjago once more. And I thought, why not rank every Ninjago villain? Main villain, anyway. I enjoyed ranking the Monkey Kid villains, and Ninjago I have a lot more to say on. Especially since I've obsessively watched this show many times. And yeah, it's just the main villains. I'm not going to talk about Kozu or Klaus or Char something. I will say this though, I do count Samukai and General Vex, so they will appear on this list. Before we begin, I'd like to give you all a reminder to check out my Letterboxd and Serialized. I'll have them linked in the description. So without further ado, let's rank every Ninjago main villain. Yeah, Harumi is easily the worst Ninjago villain. I made a whole video about that, which was pretty controversial, but hey, it got views, it got a lot of comments, which means it was really good for the algorithm. Yeah, I'd say watch that video for more detail because I still agree with everything I said there, but the short version is that Harumi is just terrible. One, how did this 16-year-old girl assemble an entire super tough biker gang all by herself? Why did they follow her? How did she know about all this stuff? So I got a comment on my Harumi video saying, well, actually, the creator of Ninjago said that since she was a princess, she paid them off. Which, yeah, okay, so that's never mentioned in the show, even once, never implied either. And that doesn't make any sense still. Why would they follow a 16-year-old girl? Why did they worship Garmadon? That's more so problems with the Sons of Garmadon, but as for Harumi, she doesn't work because the twist of her being the quiet one has basically no setup. It just kind of happens. And she just... yeah, the twist makes no sense. Just comes out of nowhere. Just for the sake of having a twist, basically. But they have other problems too, like her whole backstory, which, yeah, it's interesting how they tied in the Great Devourer to her origin and all that, but if you look in the elevator where the people said, there's no more room, we can only take one more person, which caused her parents to die because they just said, okay, you go, we'll get some other way, at least one of her parents could have fit in that elevator. The animator should have put in more people to actually make that believable. Which, sure, most people wouldn't catch that, but I did, and I caught it a long time ago. And then you have other problems too, like, yeah, why does she worship Garmadon? She says he's gonna save Ninjago, and then she just evilly smiles as she just watches him tell the police, surrender to me or I will raise your city back into the dust from which it came. She watches him destroy buildings and terrorize people, and she thinks, yeah, this guy's the hero in Ninjago City, man. She thinks the ninja are evil, which you can say, well, she got traumatized because she was young, which, okay, maybe, but it's still stupid. Like, I know it was something I was kind of in Season 2, but never really got fully expanded on, which is that even though the ninja didn't directly destroy the Great Devourer, it wouldn't have been stopped if not for them. Like, the ninja have saved Ninjago so many times, she thinks they're just a bunch of colorful idiots. Like, they are very competent, at least most of the time anyway. And yeah, where did she learn how to fight? Where was she able to do anything? She's just able to do 100 different things that are never given any explanation. When she died, I was happy. I hated her character. And her returning crystallized is just stupid. Everyone's complained about it's okay, she's with us now, which, yeah, I hate that too, but she also just has no reason to be there. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Pythor should have been the Vengestone buyer. You could have cut Harumi out, took the budget for her voice actor, and replaced Mr. F with General Cryptor and made him talk. Yeah, Harumi is terrible. Watch my video on her for greater detail. Okay, for the people who haven't clicked off the video, you'll probably click off now, because I think Nauticon is the second worst. He doesn't quite infuriate me as much as Harumi does, but Nauticon isn't that good. Okay, I will say this. He's voiced by Scott McNeil, which is amazing. Anytime Scott McNeil voices a character, that automatically makes the character better. But basically, all of these characters have great vocal performances. It's not like this is something that is specific to Nauticon. I also like his design. I think his backstory is fairly interesting, his powers and all that, but the problem for me with Nauticon is not the presentation, it's the execution of his character. Yes, the guy is a creep. Like, he's obsessed with marrying Nia because she somehow looks exactly like his dead wife, which is really weird, and then, like, for many reasons. And he doesn't need to marry her, he just decides Nia, which is creepy, and, he's able to trick the. I don't like that. Yeah, I'm sure you all knew that. I think the way he gets the ninja is all really stupid. Because here's the thing. I think one of my biggest problems with season 6, which, yeah, I talked about how much I dislike season 6 when I ranked every Ninjago season, but one of my problems with it is that how all the ninja are turned into idiots so the plot can function. In the first 5 seasons, the ninja may have not always made the smartest decisions, but they weren't idiots. I would still call them competent. But in season 6, they are turned into buffoons, so, like, how do you expect me to believe Ronin can defeat all the ninja? Okay, but that's off topic. So, Nauticon has them all wish it all away so he can trap them in his sword. Them all wishing themselves away is stupid. They really aren't smart enough to think this through. Zane literally says to Nauticon, I deduced your entire plan. You want us to wish ourselves away so you can trap us in your sword. And then he proceeds to wish himself away. Also, yeah, okay, a lot of my problems with Nauticon are just, weird Nia stuff, and also the fact that, well, he does provide a nice threat, he just didn't really live up to his potential. And that's my problem with him. He may be a fairly menacing villain, but part of the reason he's able to get so much done isn't because he's smart, it's because the ninja are stupid now. And yeah, he doesn't really do it for me. That I just don't think he's that good. He's fine. And yeah, notice how I completely hated on Harubi, but I don't hate Nauticon. Honestly, aside from Harubi, I don't think Ninjago has a single terrible villain, but I think he could have been really good. I think season 6 as a whole could have been really good had it just had a few more scripts, a few more drafts. Asphira. So, Asphira is not that good, and you know what? If it weren't for Crystallized, she'd probably be below Nauticon, but she was good in Crystallized because the show acknowledges that she's a loser. First of all, I want to say that apparently in Crystallized, she actually had a different voice actress. Instead of being voiced by Pauline Newstone, rest in peace, who was Airraiser on Beast Wars, in season 16, she's voiced by Kathleen Barr, who is Misako, who did a great job. She sounds exactly the same as Asphira's first VA, but anyway, yeah. She worked in season 16 because even though the show still treats her as a threat, it also the characters all acknowledge that she's obnoxious. The stuff with her continuously going on about revenge, revenge, revenge. Like, it is just funny to see the show completely bash into that the way all the fans bashed into it back in 2019. Also, her design is fairly good, and yeah, even though I think her whole backstory is Sensei Wu and everything, the treacherous deceiver, and she's really annoying in season 11 and kind of boring, but, I've heard some people defend Asphira by saying that, well, it's fun because she's just, your kind of cheesy, over-the-top cartoon villain you'd see in an old Hanna-Barbera show or something, except my problem with that is, one, Asphira is just very derivative of previous villains, and two, those old cartoon villains were much funnier, and those fit the tone of the show much better. But remember, Asphira was introduced in season 11, when the show went from being pretty serious for 10 seasons, especially in the last seasons 8 through 10, to being pretty silly, which is something the show would only really rectify. Like, post season 10, like once you got to the last few seasons, the Wild Brain seasons, the only season I'd really say that did a good job matching Ninjago's original tone was season 13. I think 15 and 16 made an attempt for it. Like, they all made an attempt for it, but to me, Asphira is just kind of the embodiment of Wild Brain Ninjago, which is that wants to be serious because she has the whole backstory with Sensei Wu and all that. and wanting to get revenge, but she's played up like a joke, yet the show still wants me to take her seriously. Although, for what it's worth, considering how many of the good villains were already dead, I'm not mad they included her and Crystallized. Honestly, I think her inclusion was fine enough. Because, yeah, she did actually serve the story well. Not a terrible villain, but not really that good either. Unagami. Unagami is the definition of a villain that has no presence. Yes, they continuously talk about him in Season 12. In the beginning, they have this mysterious build-up of this voice talking to the mechanic. He's something to do with Prime Empire and all that. I think the mystery of Unagami is fairly interesting. The problem is he barely has any screen time, so he doesn't really leave an impression. Outside of, what, one or two scenes, sort of? And he doesn't really show up until the last few episodes of Season 12, which just makes him he doesn't leave an impact. Sure, his final boss in the Temple of Madness against Jay, and then when he escapes to the real world is interesting, but he just doesn't really do much. Because, yeah, I do think his story is genuinely interesting. He was created as this ultimate video game program by Milton Dyer, and then he got shut down. Wanted to get revenge on Milton Dyer for shutting him down, thinking, how can my creator betrayed me? And then Jay gives him this whole speech at the end when he escapes to the real world about how, my parents abandoned me. I'm adopted. I don't know why they abandoned me. I'll never know why, but I always felt like it was for a good reason. You need to talk to Milton Dyer. You can't just want to get revenge on him for abandoning you. You don't even know why he did. Now, I think the thing is, though, this scene doesn't really work that well because Unagami barely has any screen time. Yeah, he's got a cool villain, he's got a good vocal performance, but the actual character is kind of nothing. Though I think the whole adoption speech Jay gives to him is a relic of how originally the story of Prime Empire is supposed to be about how the game was powered by Jay's mother, the original Master of Lightning. I think that would have been a really cool idea for the story and would have been way better than what we ended up getting. But LEGO told the writers to get rid of it because too many new fans wouldn't understand it. Well, what a waste. But yeah, when Unagami actually appears, he's pretty decent, I'd say, but he just appears so little, he doesn't leave an impression the way a bunch of other villains did. I mean, for as much as I ragged on Harumi, she is still memorable. I may not have liked Nanakon and the Sphere that much, but I remember them. What can you say about Unagami? Kalmar. That's why I have aside from Nanakon and Harumi, I just have all the most of the Wild Brain villains just at the bottom. Yeah, so Kalmar, there's one thing I like about him and one thing I really don't like about him. One thing I do like about him is the vocal performance. Great vocal performance. Oh, and I guess he's pretty entertaining too. He is fun to watch. But my biggest problem with Kalmar, really my main problem with Kalmar, is that he is just the embodiment of, we can't think of a new idea. Let's just rip off something we already did years ago that people liked. He is just Pythor, but a fish man. And yeah, well, he is fun to watch. He does not nearly have the same kind of presence and personality that Pythor had. His plot is, okay, he is a purple animal man who gets mad at humans for sort of driving his species underground, or in this case to the bottom of the ocean, and he thinks he is superior to surface dwellers or whatever, and he unleashes a giant snake to get his revenge that destroys Ninjago City and then eats him. They had to have known they were ripping off Pythor. Did they really think this was original? And there's nothing wrong with a villain that is kind of similar to an old one, I suppose, but when it is so obviously just a ripoff, I just don't care. Because all I'm ever going to see Kalmar is as the discount Pythor. Mom, can we have a Pythor in our show? We have Pythor at home. At home. Yeah. Yeah, again, not the worst, because, yeah, he was fun to watch, but he's just so derivative of Pythor. That's all I'm ever going to see him as. Okay, the Omega, the Destructor from March of the Oni. Now, I guess bet some of you are thinking, huh, you don't like the Omega that much, do you? No, actually, I like the Omega. Some people might be thinking, seriously? But he's such a nothing character. He barely appears, and he doesn't really do much. But honestly, I think he actually is pretty good. He's nothing amazing, but I did like him. I can't remember what YouTuber made it or what it was called, but I saw a video once that talked about him and said how, despite barely appearing, he does for Garmadon's character is kind of genius. Because in season 8 and 9, Garmadon was brought back to life, but just the Oni side of himself, is this pure evil demon bent on conquering the world. But in season 10, he has to now work with the ninja, because if anyone's going to rule Ninjago, he'd rather it be him. If he can't rule the world, he might as well save it, you know. Sonic Movie 3 Eggman, but the Omega works because, much like Garmadon is now, he is also just an Oni. But here's the thing. Even though they did just bring back the Oni part of Garmadon, it's still Garmadon they brought back. The human and dragon parts of him are still there. But the Omega is literally just the Oni. That's it. He's the leader of the Oni. Their evil, all-powerful leader. So he questions Garmadon. He says, You are Oni. Why have you not taken this realm? He calls him weak. He says, you wanna make everyone think you're this awesome, powerful destructor. But in reality, in your heart, you seek to understand these humans. You wish to be among them. It's really good stuff. And it only works because of the Omega. And sure, he doesn't do much. He's generic, but he is threatening. He's threatening, and he serves a really good role in the story. And you know what? Since season 10 is so short, I think he did a pretty good job. Yeah, nothing amazing, but a good villain. And if Ninjago ended at season 10, I'd say he's not the worst way to end this show. General Vex. Yeah, I did say I'd mention Vex, and here's where I gotta just give the show credit. Vex is a really good villain. When I last watched season 11, it was painful. The first time I watched it, I didn't love it, but it was the new season, so I was enjoying it to some extent. Then when I watched it again, I saw it with my brother who hadn't seen it yet, because he kind of fell out of Ninjago for a bit. And I think it wasn't that good, but it was fun to watch with someone else. But then when I watched season 11 again, I just hated it. It was so hard to get through. Which is why it surprised me just how much I like General Vex as a villain. He's the same voice actor as Samukai, actually. He passed away a few years ago, Michael Kopsa. May he rest in peace, because he was a great voice actor. I and many others criticized the 2D animated episodes in Ninjago, and season 11 had a few of those. One of those was the last of the Formlings, where we actually get Vex's backstory, a bit of it anyway, and I thought it was actually told really well. I like the story of how Akita and her brother grew up in the village of the Formlings, and Akita was worried that she might end up like Vex the Formless, who then shows up to criticize his whole village about how they drove him away. They called him names. About how he was wicked and Vex the Formless and all that stuff. And then when Akita finally unlocks her animal form, she returns to her village. She finds that Vex and the Ice Emperor have frozen it, destroyed everything, and Vex has finally had his revenge. This is where I think he's a character where I think the vocal performance really helps out. Michael Kopsa did such a good job in that episode. And then we get the full extent of his backstory when we find out how he was kicked out of the Formlings village. He messed with Zane's programming to get him to thinking he's the Ice Emperor. Yeah, I thought, pretty clever, manipulative villain. Using Zane to take over the Neverrealm so he can become General Vex as his second in command and have power over the realm and all that. Yeah, he's not an amazing villain, but I thought he was a smart villain, and his plans didn't require other characters being idiots for them to function. Not a gun! And he had a good design. Sure, he may not technically be a main villain, but I always liked General Vex, so I felt like I should include him here. And yeah, he is technically the main villain of the Ice chapter, to an extent, sort of. Samukai. I love Samukai. He is the OG Ninjago villain. He is great. He's General Grievous, but a skeleton. Like I said before, the same guy who voiced Samukai voiced General Vex, and I love his Samukai voice because it can sound properly funny and threatening at the same time. The way it's designed and flows with the daggers, yeah, it's genuinely menacing and leaves an impression. It's memorable. Like the weird crack on his face that all the skeletons have, but it looks cool. Um, his fight with Sensei Wu, his scene where he tries to betray Garmadon because he will obey him now. Of course, he's such a fool. Does he really think Garmadon wouldn't plan on his betrayal? Yeah, haha. I've seen this show too many times. And then his death scene, which was, yeah, pretty well handled. He just disappears in a puff of smoke because no one can handle all of their power at once. Not even he with 4 arms could wield the. He may have had 4 arms, could hold all 4 golden weapons, but he couldn't wield their power. And yeah, he's not an amazing villain. I mean, he's in 2 episodes in The Day of the Departed, but he's the original Ninjago villain. He felt like a threat. He was entertaining to watch. I really liked they brought him back in Day of the Departed. And none of the villains were exactly at their peak in that special, but as I've said before, I like Day of the Departed. And, I like how Sam Mackay was handled there. It was just cool to get to see him again, because he is a classic. Really good villain. Yang. Sensei Yang is really good. And y'all are just mean. His episode in Season 5 is amazing. To be fair, Season 5 is, the greatest thing mankind has ever created, but, he's one of the best episodes of Possession. The ninja return to Yang's haunted temple. The temple of a sensei without a pupil. The way he manipulates the temple to scare the ninja, this kind of creepy haunted house where everything's chasing them, he makes them face their fears. You have his ghost appearing to them with his creepy saying, "As iron sharpens iron, sensei sharpens student." And what does he mean by sharpen, And there's a whole pretty creepy backstory about his pupils. You know how Jay reads this book that says, although known for his usually strict teachings, many people think that's what drove Sensei Yang's pupils away. But others admit to have never seen them leaving the temple grounds, suggesting a more sinister plot. And then when they get to the dojo, Kai says, "Sensei Yang's dojo, this must have been where he trained his students." And Jay says, "Or got rid of them." And then when he appears the ninja again in the attic, Cole realizes he's not just their mentor, he's their captor. Like, what the heck? This is some pretty messed up stuff. We get the creepy line as he gives the ninja the scroll of air jutsu and says, "Only those who see things through will reap the benefit of the reward." And you hear his evil laugh as Cole finds out he's been turned into a ghost. And yeah, that was just 1 episode. He's definitely not the main villain there. You barely even see him. But he left such an impression off that 1 episode, so I'm really glad they brought him back for Day of the Departed. I thought he was really well handled. His plan, it's every 2,000 years or something, a yin-yang eclipse happens, and he's going to, take his place among the living once more. Except Cole also wants to do the same, so he has this whole battle with Cole, and Cole's to fight his pupils and all that. And Sensei Yang gives his backstory about how he discovered the Yin Blade, which could make things immortal, so his final test was on himself. But it not only turned him into a ghost, it also turned his pupils into ghosts as well. So yeah, he will live forever, but he's a ghost. And we get his whole motivation about how he wanted to become immortal because he was worried the day he was gone, no one would remember him. Because Day of the Departed, the holiday, not the special, is all about how you always need to remember your ancestors. Honor those who came before you. And yeah, Cole says, but you will be remembered forever. You created Air Jitsu, and it's Air Jitsu that saves Cole at the end. As you think Sensei Yang is gonna say, well, one of us has to stay behind the temple so the curse can remain in effect. And you think he's gonna push away Cole, so and he can finally be freed. But no, he lets Cole go. Cole turns back into a human, and he remains behind the temple as a ghost. And the ninja are able to move into it in Season 7 because he is no longer obsessed with haunting and creeping people out. He is just going to remain forever as the ghost of the temple. Why did they just abandon Sensei Yang's temple? It would have been cool to see him again, although I don't think he needed to appear again. So yeah, I really like Sensei Yang. I mostly just talked about his backstory. But yeah, I think it's a good backstory. He provides a good threat for Cole and Day the Departed, the way he taunts him about how, look at yourself. See you're missing. Why, you can barely even see yourself. And yeah, his role in season 5 is just particularly creepy and really helped that episode. He's great. The Skull Sorcerer. Easily the best of the Wild Brain villains. The Skull Sorcerer is exactly what I wanted of a Ninjago villain. He's got a great design, great vocal performance. He's properly menacing. He has a presence. He is an awesome skeleton dragon. He's the king of this shiny magical kingdom, but he's secretly an evil sorcerer with a green magic skull. He just screams memorable. He's unique. I mean, there aren't any other magical Ninjago villains. He's not. Okay, I guess there's Klaus, but he's not. He's a side villain. And yeah, remember when people thought Klaus was going to be the Skull Sorcerer? I'm not mad he wasn't. That would have felt kind of out of nowhere. But yeah, he's great. I love his battle with Cole at the end about how he teases him about how his mother gave the whole thing with the two blades and the geckos and the month. She tried to bring peace, and she destroyed Griefbringer, but he's brought Griefbringer back. He's gonna stop Cole. He's gonna just continue to enslave the geckos and months. No one can stop him. And well, he's not that complex. He doesn't need to be complex. I like his little bit where he tells Vanya about how, yeah, the reason he enslaved the geckos and the months is because he needed their slave labor to mine Vengestone, which he could sell. He said, why do you think our kingdom is so rich? Why do you think it's so big? Why do you think it never has any problems? And yeah, it's pretty messed up that he's a slave owner, and he tricked the geckos and the months into endlessly fighting each other. He's smart, he has a great design, and he leaves an impact. I was really glad they brought him back for Crystallize because he's the only Wild Brain villain who is good. Let's be honest. I mean, if you've seen that video Pythor doesn't accept, when you've got him asking, the guy, what cool villains do you have? And he says, Skull Sorcerer? Oh, wait, he actually sounds pretty cool. Yeah, he is. And he's voiced by Devin Mack, who is Sonic in Sonic Prime. That's just really funny to me. I like his creepy green skull. The dragon he has, Griefbringer, is really cool. I have that Lego set. I like the music that plays whenever he shows up. But yeah, talk about a villain that has a presence. Season 13 was the last season Ninjago is considered to be good, so it's nice to know that it had a great villain to go along with it. The Iron Baron from Hunted. Now, I know a lot of people really don't like the Iron Baron. They think he's just boring and unoriginal, but I think the Iron Baron is one of Ninjago's most interesting villains. Much like Drago Bloodfist from How to Train Your Dragon 2, which, now that I think about it, he has to be based on Drago. I mean, there's an episode in Season 9 called How to Build a Dragon. They copy the famous shot from the first movie of Hiccup bonding with Toothless, except they put it with Kai and some random dragon. Hunted is basically an homage to How to Train Your Dragon and Mad Max Fury Road. And the Iron Baron is basically a combination of Drago Bloodfist and your generic evil dictator character. His voice, his mechanical arm, his staff, all reminiscent of Drago. But anyway, he works, and much like Drago, I think he works well because he is so simple. He is complex in his simplicity. The people of the First Realm would naturally be afraid of dragons. How do they get resources and stuff like that? So this guy comes up to them, becomes their leader, saying, you have to kill dragons for resources, which, you know what, would make sense. They need to eat. Dragons are useful. You want to capture a few dragons, that's fine. But he doesn't just want to merely work with the dragons, because much like Drago Bloodfist, more How to Train a Dragon comparisons, he doesn't view dragons as intelligent creatures that we can work with. He views them as mindless beasts that we can use as tools. He says, Sensei Wu asks him when they're searching for the dragon armor, why do you lie to all these people? You're keeping them in fear. And he says, I told them what they wanted to hear. I keep them safe. And all I ask is that I be treated like a king. Is that so wrong? He just wants power. He loves being a king, having everyone cheer him on, commanding this huge army, hunting dragons, declaring himself as this ultimate ruler. He wants the dragon armor because he thinks, if I can control Firstborn, I'll really be on top. of all the power there could ever be in this realm. And then, he also lost an arm to Firstborn. But he's not just interesting in those regards. He's also really messed up. The whole, he gets these people to treat him like a king because he convinces them that, oh, only he can save them. But also, I'm sure you all remember the scene where Faith is telling all the dragon hunters, we are in Oni land, but have you seen a single one? No, they only left these lands long ago. The Iron Baron keeps telling us his stories about fighting off armies of Oni, but they're not here anymore. He says he lost his greatest hunters to get the Dragon Blade. How do we know it was not him who took their lives? And yeah, he totally took their lives. Like, there is no way this man didn't. And at the end, when he finally gets the dragon armor, Sensei Wu tells him, I learned a lot from my ninja. A sense of humor, confidence. But I also learned something from you. The power of lies. You didn't really think the dragon armor was what made Firstborn obey my father, did you? It was his heart. She sensed goodness in it. What does she sense in you? And he puts on the armor. He holds up his sword to Firstborn, saying, you obey me, beast! And then she shoots fire on him and he dies. Yeah, I just think he's really good. I mean, the way he commands this whole army, the way he's frighteningly realistic. He's totally supposed to be like some kind of real-world dictator that convinces people that only he can save them. But even though he's doing awful things, he just keeps them blind to it. And yeah, basically being a reference to a How to Train Your Dragon villain is definitely, that gets points from me. And he's voiced by Brian Drummond. Okay, The Hands of Time. The Hands of Time are awesome. I think Season 7 is great. I don't get the hate. But I think even its haters will agree that the Hands of Time are great villains. Achronix and Crux are just so much fun to watch. Usually when we have a villain in Ninjago, it's either one big bad or one big bad with, some evil henchman or something. But Achronix and Crux, when they do have the evil henchmen, are two guys. They're equals. They're partners. They're twin brothers. But I love the contrast of them. They didn't just make them the same character, but twice. They easily could have done that. Instead, it's Achronix got sent into the time stream decades ago, only to return in the modern day. He's still young, he's tough, but Crux has remained behind. He's become a grouchy old man who hates that modern technology. His plan is to return Ninjago to its pre-modern glory! But Crux, being this young guy who's never seen all this technology before, he loves it. Like, his minifigure, and so not just the minifigure, but also in the show, he has, ear pods printed on him, connected to a smartphone, while Crux, on the other hand, has, an hourglass. Great character design. Well, you get the scene where he's talking about how, brother, the modern world is truly amazing. You've gotten to witness the last 40 years of advancement. Amazing! A wall-mounted window of, capable of displaying 30-second dramas! Those dramas are commercials! They just have such great chemistry. Just fun to watch these two brothers. One young, hip guy, and one grouchy old guy. It also helps that they're genuinely threatening. I like their backstory with Sensei Wu about being the elemental masters of time, taking out the time blades. I like that the Vermilion aren't just random snake eyes they created. They are apparently from the spawn of the Great Devourer. That's some cool continuity. Sure, it doesn't really make any sense for Achronix to be wanting to go along with Crux's plan to return Ninjago to its pre-modern glory, but he's entertaining. I love the design of Iron Doom. These guys just have flair. I mean, I remember watching Season 7 for the first time. First episode, Sensei Wu sitting in the monastery, then Crux just appears in a bolt of lightning, sort of. And he says, Sensei Wu, you're still here, but you look old. And we get this whole back and forth between him and Wu about the battle between the Elemental Masters and the Hands of Time. The mystery around him in the first episode is really good. Same thing with the mystery of Crux, and I appreciate they don't try to hide his secret identity for very long. They reveal it to the audience really quickly, but it works. Oh, also there's the amazing scene where they're trying to find their secret lair in the sewers, and Chronix is saying, you're having a little trouble with that map? this show seems hard to find, and Crux says, it's a secret layer, it's supposed to be hard to find. And Chronix offers to use his amazing Borg watch GPS, except, he has no internet connection in the sewers. You know, it's great stuff. They're great. Some people say they should be brought back, and I disagree. Because what would really the point of their return be? I mean, I stopped watching after Crystal. I'm done with Ninjago, but yeah, I don't really see a point in them returning. They were great in season 7, and that's that. The Overlord is iconic. He is how you do a big evil villain. Because there are certain types of villains. There are pure evil villains, like, Jack Horner from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. But then there are villains who are not just pure evil, but they're supposed to be like the embodiment of evil. Like Mum-Ra from Thundercats or something like that. The Overlord just oozes menace. Everything from Scott McNeil's brilliant vocal performance, the way he's presented with his various designs, backstory. He truly feels like this ancient evil villain from the beginning of time, forged from the blackest of night and all that stuff. I like how he's presented in season 2, where we get the backstory about how even when there is good, if there is good, there must also exist darkness. The blackest of darkness, the Overlord. How he fought the first Ninjutsu Master, and now he's reduced to a blob helping out Garmadon. But then, twist villain time, which I don't think was supposed to be that surprising anyway, so it's not really a problem. He possesses Garmadon and turns him into a creepy crocodile man. And he will go to Ninjago City, where he will finish this once and for all! That voice is so hard to do. How did Scott McNeil do a voice like this? Yeah, like his battle with Lloyd, where Lloyd's begging him to, Father, you're still in there! And he gets a brief flash of Garmadon, but then the Overlord turns back and says, your father is gone! And we get his whole lines about how, foolish boy, I've been planning this for thousands of years! And he returns to Ninjago City in the Garmatron, shooting at everything as he starts maniacally laughing with the wings that start to grow out of him. I always remember this scene where Dareth confronts him, and he says, you have to the count of 3 to leave here and never return. 3, 2, 2.5. 1. Yeah. And yeah, his dragon form is awesome. I don't think that needs to be said. And he truly feels threatening and big. I love his return in season 3. Seeing him as this digital virus hopping around new bodies, trying to be restored. Until he comes with, we get the fight between the Golden Ninja and the Digital Overlord in the Digiverse, which is just so good. One of the best scenes in Ninjago, in my opinion. We get his plan to become the Golden Master, where he, the scene where he creepily marches down the halls and finally in a physical form, as the Ninjroids all stand beside him, like they're saluting a general or something. And listen, I love the presentation of the Overlord, which I've already gushed about a bunch, but one more thing I gotta say, I love the part where the ninja finally make it back to the city, but as they're about to approach it, they take one look at it, and Jay says, that's not a city, that's an impenetrable fortress! And Garmadon creepily says, beyond these walls lies the power of the first Spinjitzu Master. Like the way he slowly gets bigger and bigger once the ninja actually have to fight him, like when he does Spinjitzu and chases them down. His awesome golden mech armor thing, he becomes like a giant spider until Zane is finally able to destroy him. And then we get one of the many shots from Ninjago that have just been burned into my brain. The Overlord screams as Zane creates a giant ice around them, and then things just go silent as everything gets frozen in ice, then shatters as the Overlord's gigantic helmet falls to the ground and rolls over empty. What a chilling image. And then there's Return and Crystallized. I really didn't want him to come back originally, but the more I thought about it, I thought it was a good idea. It's the finale of Ninjago. Why not bring back the Overlord one more time? And for as many problems I have with Crystallized, I think the Overlord was handled well. I think the whole Crystal King thing was a cool idea. I liked his design. I didn't like his voice. I mean, he was still voiced by Scott McNeil, which I'm so glad they kept him, but the voice just sounded completely different. Not awful, just, didn't sound like the Overlord. I love his fight with Sensei Wu aboard his giant evil Mount Kavora from Shima. And then he becomes a giant centaur at the end where he reveals, "It was me, Garmadon! I was the one who made the Great Devourer evil and planted it in the grass," which, honestly, I like that reveal. He was the one who turned Garmadon evil, because it makes complete sense. I mean, he said that he had planned for Garmadon to return the Dark Island, which means, yeah, he must have planned for Garmadon to turn evil for that plan to even work. But yeah, Overlord is just great. I got no complaints with the Overlord. People who say he's a bad villain don't know what they're talking about. Garmadon. This video's been going on for way longer than I wanted it to, and there is so much to say about Garmadon. The reason I didn't put him at number 1 is because even though he's probably Ninjago's most well-developed character and one of the most consistent, well, he's not the best villain. He's a great one, but, I mean, he's not actually the main villain for that long. A lot of episodes are just about him, having to work with the ninja, going through his character arc. His brilliant character arc, might I add. There's a video called How Ninjago Wrote the Perfect Villain, which you should watch. But yeah. In the pilot, he's built up as this ancient evil, Sensei Wu's brother who betrayed him. We get his awesome speech about how good and evil, there has always been a balance. He disappears into his creepy vortex. Gives his whole... I like how he, despite barely appearing, he seems genuinely smart. Like, he's able to trick Kai into giving him the Sword of Fire. He creates the evil Shadow Kais. And he completely figured out Samukai. "You fool, you think I wouldn't plan on your betrayal? Even I can handle all that power." And yeah, Mark Oliver's vocal performance might be in, like, the top 5 greatest vocal performances ever. I mean that. Like, I know they're never going to do it, but when they do a live-action Ninjago movie, they should get him to still voice Garmadon. Honestly, I think not having him voice Garmadon is kind of disrespectful. He just did such a good job. But I love getting to see him in Season 1 where he plays, he's evil, but he has to work with the ninja. You can see he doesn't really want to be evil, but it's the evil in his blood. It runs through it. We get his whole, little subplot with Sensei Wu traveling around the realm of madness with him. And the ninja he has to be the one to wield the golden weapons to destroy the Great Devourer. Then he becomes a really fun, old Saturday morning cartoon villain for the first half of Season 2, where he still feels like the same character, even though they made him sillier. He still works well. I just love him in Season 2. And then we see him in the rest of Season 2, where he's plotting with the Overlords. You can see that he may be talking about how he's going to use this dark matter to make Ninjago into his own image, but as the Overlord says, I can see that in your heart you don't really want to do this. You're going to do it, no question, but you don't really want to do this that badly. He doesn't want to fight his son. But as Misako, Wu, and Lloyd plead with him to turn good at the whole Garmatron scene, he says, "Don't you see? I will never do what is right." He says the only way for them to be together is to turn everything in Ninjago into his own image, so they will all see what he sees, feel what he feels. And then he gets turned good at the end of Season 2 in a really nice scene. And then Season 3 is just about him being Sensei Garmadon, who is amazing. We get to see him mentor Lloyd. Season 4, we continue that, but we also get to see him deal with his past with Chen and Sensei Wu, finally making peace with his past, where he says, "Who are we kidding? There's not enough time for me to make up for the pain I've caused in my life. But if I could just save Ninjago." You know what? Despite having seen it so many times, the last time I watched Season 4, I actually cried watching his funeral scene. His sacrifice just hits so hard. He comes to the conclusion that, yeah, he was Lord Garmadon. He did too many evil things to ever really be forgiven, but the important thing is that he can give his life to save Ninjago. He could have... What else is he supposed to do, right? Season 5, we get that one scene with him in the Cursed Realm, and then he's gone. His character is completed, and it was handled really well. Bro, he comes back in Season 8, and it's awesome. Normally, bringing a dead character back to life is a bad idea, but not with Garmadon. I mean, he's Garmadon. But it also works because it doesn't erase his character development. Because yeah, Season 9, 8, and 9, he is brought back as this pure evil Oni. And in season 9, we get to see him act as just this cold and calculating villain. We finally get to see him the way he was described in the pilots. He has the dark lore. There's no good in him. We get a few scenes where we see that despite that, he's not like totally flawless in his villainy, if that makes any sense. Like, he still has fears. He has doubts. And then season 10, we get what I talked about him with his dynamic with the Omega, about how he has to work with the ninja. He doesn't want to, but he has no choice. How else are they going to stop the Oni? But we can see that since even though the humanity is basically drained out of him now, that doesn't mean he doesn't want to have it back. He wants to understand the ninja, regular humans. He wants to know what it is like to be among them. Why do they do the things they do? Which is something that gets expanded on in season 16. He is the best part of season 16. Him going back to 2 arms instead of 4 to symbolize character development, his Oni form, Christopher, all that stuff. It's great. Also, there's the Garmadon comic, which takes place in between season 10 and 16, which is really good for his character. It's about how he finally has to ask himself the question, what does he want? He wants redemption. Peak character. Master Chen. I made a video about him. Go watch that. Okay, actually, it's not that good a video, but Chen is just amazing. I actually got to meet the guy who voices him at TFCon a few years ago because he's Cheetor in Beast Wars. He's also Scales. Ian James Corlett. He's great as Chen. Chen works because he's kind of an Eggman or Jack Horner type villain. He's incredibly funny, but he's also pretty menacing. You can just feel the malice in this guy because he has one goal: power. And it's as simple as he was told he would never amount to anything, but I will show them they are wrong. They are all wrong. Some can call that weak, but that's the point. The point is that he is shallow. As Skylar says, you care more for power than your own daughter, and he says, but without power, I'm insignificant. Is that what you want? An insignificant father? I love his dynamic with Klaus, his backstory with Garmadon, the way he created both Serpentine Wars. He manipulates the tournament of elements into getting exactly what he wants. He finally gets to turn himself into an Anachondri, and we see that he can't be defeated. Him and his army, they're just too strong. So it takes Garmadon dying to finally stop the Anachondri. And his return in Day of the Departed isn't the best. I mean, he says he needs to get even with Nia. Oh, and I guess her brother too, which doesn't really make sense. He has more of a vendetta against Kai than Nia, but whatever. But yeah, Chen is just great. Also, he's totally a bit patterned after Mola Ram from Temple of Doom. I mean, his whole weird Anaconda cult is basically just the cult from Temple of Doom. Moro. I made a video on Moro, which you should watch because it's a really good video, I thought. Moro is great. Honestly, since this video is running way longer than I wanted it to, I'm just going to tell you to watch the video I did. Might be a bit of a cop-out, but I just don't really know what to explain about Moro that doesn't require me going super in-depth. He's menacing, he's funny, he's well-written, he's got a great design, and a killer vocal performance. Pythor. In my opinion, Pythor is the greatest villain ever. I made a video on it. Okay, now I'm just plugging old videos I did, but yeah. Pythor is amazing. He has a amazing design. It just works so well. The vocal performance by Michael Dobson is just perfection. Ugh. The way he perfectly flows in every single story he's in. He is never useless to the story of Ninjago ever. Every single time he appears, he is completely in character and he's always so much fun to watch. But he also provides such a great threat, the way he manipulates things in Season 1, his surprise return in Season 3, in 4, then he comes back in Day of the Departed, and then, he comes back one more time in Crystallized, which, yeah, he should have been the Venstone buyer, and way more satisfying for Ninjago's original, okay, not original, but one of the original villains to be, have a big role in the final season, but, yeah, Pythor is just amazing. So yeah, even though this video went for way longer than I thought it would, I still really enjoyed making this. Comment down below what you think, because you probably have some pretty different thoughts than I do. That's all for now, and remember to stay way past cool.